On this episode of Game Shack, I explain the 5 reasons why Arcade1up might be willing to expand past the 12-game limit on their machines. Coming up next. Hey everybody, it's JDV here for Evil Genius Entertainment. Thanks for coming on into another episode of Game Shack. If you like this kind of content, if you like the movies that we produce and other things that we do, please consider becoming a Patreon subscriber where you will get some benefits. We're going to start increasing our attention to that and people who, give us a little bit of sugar. Okay, so on this episode, I'm going to talk about the 5 reasons why Arcade1up might be willing to give us some a la carte gaming, games that we just pick from a list, or be willing to give us like a chunk of games. So if you buy 12 games in one cab, maybe for $100, they'll give you another 12, something like that. The first reason is we've seen them do this. They've sort of been building up to it right from their very first releases. As anyone who followed Arcade1up's kind of meteoric success or rise in kind of building a whole new niche of hobbydom or gaming, they started off with just 1 and 2 games in the units, increasing gradually over those 3 years, all the way up to now where all of the legacy cabinets will each have 12 games in them, and not necessarily all that closely related to each other. Even in the Pac-Man 40th anniversary game, we see the inclusion of Galaga, which doesn't really have anything to do with the other games on that unit. So we've seen Arcade1up's willingness to not only start to add more games, we've seen their willingness to add games that don't necessarily have anything to do with each other than the fact that technically they can be played by the same CPU kind of brain. So we have that. 2. Console Kits has another reason for this. I saw a video here last week where he speculates that one of the reasons why we're not seeing the names of the games on the units so prominently displayed on the kick plate anymore is that because down the line, Arcade1up might be offering more games, and for the sticklers amongst us, they don't want a game list on the kick plate that does not actually represent the games that the machine has. That's a little thin for me, but hey, it's something. And there are, of course, people who are very, very keen on keeping their units as pristine as they can, as close to arcade as they can, and just as perfect as they can. I'm not one of those cats, but there are a lot of people out there like that. 3. You can only have so many cabinets. We're seeing some, even super fans of Arcade1up who have 10, 12 of these units in their house, and they're like, well, I'm having to make some decisions now on what cabs I keep because I simply do not have any more room. For instance, if you have a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle 4-player, an NBA Jam 4-player, and the Golden Axe 4-player, well, you're talking about a pretty sizable chunk of wall space. I mean, I would like to, like maybe 9 feet if you have any kind of spacing between those games. Those units are pretty large. Why have all the super cool artwork on the sides of your machines if you can't see them? Somebody like me, I've got to have more games in these machines because I can only have 3 or 4 of these machines tops. And if I have a 4-player unit the way I kind of DIY'd back there, my room really starts to become limited. So if they want to attract the more casual buyer who's only going to buy 1 machine or maybe 2 tops, I think that they have to have more games. 4. Arcade1up, now that these new machines, I think all of the new machines that they've announced at CES, like the Dragon's Lair and Killer Instinct, that type of game, they all have some sort of Wi-Fi capacity. And with Wi-Fi, of course, they can get firmware updates, and they can also get more games via the Wi-Fi. I don't know if those units have a micro USB input or not, but I do know that apparently the legacy games do. Apparently the Star Wars and Marvel pinball games do have a micro USB port, which again, yeah, you could get firmware through that, but you could also get more games. So there seems to be not only some business rationale for doing it and fan demand for it, But now there is the actual physical capacity to do it. Unlike, say, something like the Toy Shock Haunted House pinball game, which to fix the version 1 kind of flipper delay and lag, they had to send out all new CPUs for people to install. I think Arcade1up is seeing that, well, that just doesn't make sense. And if we want to keep our fans happy, and if there is a glitch, let's say they put out a machine and despite all best efforts, there's a glitch in them, well, gee, it sure would be cheaper just to be able to have them download it to a USB card as opposed to having to send out all new CPU units to everybody. So it makes sense that way. But anyway, all of their new machines that were announced this year have some capacity, it looks like, to upgrade both firmware and games. 5! And the number one reason why Arcade1up might be looking at either a la carte type, buying one game at a time, or being able to buy collections of things at a time, is because everyone else that is making these type of games has that capacity. Be it at games, be it Arcade, be it people who are getting Pandora's boxes or using RetroPies. The kind of revolution that Arcade1up began isn't just limited to what Arcade1up puts out. And of course they're aware of that, but you are seeing ever more slick, ever more professional looking cabinets come out from other companies, and almost all of them have some ability to add games or to add firmware or do both, or to play live on the internet with people. So it's Arcade1up, I think, understands that they might be maxing out on the initial kind of super fan of this unit, of this style of game. And if that's true, then they have to be willing to be flexible if they're going to match their competition. Because if you only can afford one cabinet, are you going to buy something like the At Games that has 30 games in it, something like that, with the capacity to upgrade to hundreds, maybe thousands more games? Or are you going to stick with the 12-in-1 legacy cabinet? If you can only have one, you're going to buy the At Games. There's no choice about it. If you can only buy one, are you going to look at the Arcade Dragon's Lair kind of skin, or are you going to just wait to where you only get 2 Dragon's Lair games and a Space Ace? Again, you're probably going to spend the extra $200-300 and go with the Arcade just because it has more games. Okay, all that said, it's just pure speculation. They might stick completely to their business model, which is sort of offering kind of a premium experience. You're going to get no more than 12 games, but those games will all work perfectly well, and you'll have amazing art on the sides and the cabinet. We'll start to have different designs. So, I mean, they might not do any of this, but I hope they do, because, I mean, it would be very cool to have a 20-in-1, a 60-in-1 machine. You can get that JAMA board that has 60-in-1 games, and boy, that is a pretty good experience. If you can only have one cabinet for your family, boy, that would sure be cool to have. All right, anyway, so that wraps it up, and let's hope that they do something like this in the future, because I sure do like this company, and I sure would like to be able to put some more games on the machines I buy from them. If you like this, please like and subscribe. Love each other, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the Game Shack. Mwah! Better at those games, John D. More. Be sure to visit EvilGeniusEntertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.